everyone to our story. This month is AAPI Heritage Month, and we thought that we would bring the focus back on something that is across cultures, across the board, something that ties us all together. And that is being rooted in community and family, being away from our ancestral lands and homes. You know, we are accustomed to other things and other values, but this month we wanted to recenter the focus on our families and communities and the village that helped raise us. My name is Mary. I am the lactation peer counselor at Open Arms, and I'm joined here by wonderful, wonderful people. I will let them introduce themselves. I will popcorn it to Mia with the PI Health Board. Hi, Mia, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Mary. It's good to be back on. So my name's Mia. I'm with the Pacific Islander Health Board, and I do the outreach. And I will pass it to Farrah. You're muted, Farrah.
Thanks, Mia. My name's Farrah. I currently work for Open Arms as the Perinatal and Lactation Support Peer Counselor Director, and I'm here holding the auntie perspective. And I'll popcorn to Mama. Good to see you, Mom. So good to see you.
Thank you. I'm Eloise and Dan. Was invited to this, so I'm pretty curious on what's going to happen next. So I'll pass it on to the next person.
I guess I'll go, right? Is that me?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leo. I was brought here to bring the father aspect of the API club. The API community, and kind of curious on what this meeting is about and how I could help as looking at a perspective as a father of inside out. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob. I'm a Seattle U nursing student, and I'm an intern at the PIHB.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Before we get started with everything, I just wanted to hold deep gratitude and appreciation and respect to the Coast Salish nations in which we are currently residing, and blessed to rely on their land, her resources, culture, and people who continue to care for this place, and also acknowledging that the Duwamish tribe is not federally recognized, and want to acknowledge them and that. So across the islands and our cultures, and I really believe, like in all the indigenous cultures, we are rooted in community and family. And sometimes when we move away from our ancestral homes, we kind of, take on our cultural values of the lands that we're staying in, kind of influence that and kind of bring us out of the communities and focusing on ourselves. But I really think that there's been kind of this resurgence and need to bring it back to our communities, and especially regarding our birthing practices and raising of our children. It does take a village, and we all benefit from it. I was wondering, in birthing and raising our children, what are some cultural traditions that you still practice, or that you hope to keep alive in various ways, adapting to where we're living now? I was wondering, let's see, I guess I can start from a mother point of view, or some of the cultural traditions that I'm practicing, and I'm actually kind of doing this right now with one of my youngest, is bringing more focus and recognition back on our elders and making space for them instead of, we're so used to our grandparents taking care of us, and I think reciprocating that in this, I'll just say it, in our culture in America, that's not very, we tend to just kind of not reciprocate as much. So one of the traditions I'm bringing back is creating space and for our elders, listening to their stories, listening to their wisdom and medicine. So.
Auntie Eloise, I know you've raised a lot of kids and a lot of grandkids. What are some of those cultural traditions that you keep?
We pray a lot. I raised my family in going to church on Sunday, and we're very close with our church members. And as a family, we have grown to, like with my mom, she worked a lot. She always was working. And then when I had my kids, we were always working. Every one of them had chores. And cleaning yard was my big thing. I love cleaning yard, and I hate cleaning house. So the girls cleaned the house, and the boys and we went outside and cleaned the yard. But some of the traditions that we do have is singing. I love singing with my kids and watching them dance, and then actually see my grandkids take over and doing things like that. And then our family gatherings together and finding out how each one of them are doing. It just helps us to stay close.
That's so beautiful. Oh man. I was thinking about this and I was like, food is one of those traditions we always were raised with. Like we would go hang out with grandma, and grandma would be like, here's this curry, have fun. And we'd be like, yeah, curry from grandma. Or like my mom would always make chocolate rice on cold days. And so those were like cultural traditions that like as kids we always grew up with. It is always like food related.
Chocolate rice sounds delicious.
Chocolate rice
is that like?
It's literally it's rice you cover in chocolate sauce. That's essentially it. Yeah.
That's delicious.
It's a win. How about you, Farrah?
The question that was asked about like the birth traditions and the cultural pieces. There's I'm also sharing. I'm a retired home birth midwife. So when I take what are birth traditions that you would like to do, I think about that, and I think about how that relates to parenting and how that relates to my role as an auntie in community, and how the piece of being away from your homeland and away from family, and how that really affects our community, our API community, because there's these terminologies and these words that are used to label individuals who are helping at birth. And specifically the word midwife and the word doula, like before those words came, like there were labels of what midwives were named in different cultures. In Hawaii, they were called palekiki. In our culture, in the Philippines, they're called parteras or comadronas. And before all of that, if you're thinking of a doula, they were like your aunties. They were your aunties who came and they were just a part of your birth. Or they could have been a husband who like knew about it because the person just a family had so many babies. So I'm thinking about that piece and just remembering that, and really want to hone that part in when talking about the strength of our communities, and remembering that there's like certain labels that are put upon these that are put upon us because we just have to adapt to where we are right now, and how that separation from those words and those foods and those traditions and those songs really impact how how we are with our kids. From the auntie perspective, I feel like I hold that piece where I'm supportive of the parent, like giving them breaks. Like that's a huge role that I take. Like I remember having my cousins, even my aunties, or even my girlfriends, like, can you come over and just play with these kids? And I'm also holding that perspective to support these kiki, like my nieces and nephews, because they might not be able to say things to their parents, but I'm holding that space where they're able to disclose things that they might not be ready to tell their parents. And I have a disclosure about that. Like my disclosure to my nieces and nephews who are teenagers is, you can tell me things, but there's a line where I may have to tell your parents. Just want to make sure that you know that. So, the full disclosure of how my role of being an auntie and holding that like the cultural piece of how I feel our community naturally does. We naturally just care for other children because that's the way that it was. I grew up my grandfather built this 3-story house in Hawaii, and I grew up there, and I was really lucky to have like my immediate family in that house. And I'm remembering how growing up, it was very common for like my auntie or my uncles to discipline me. Like if I did something wrong, somebody would say something, and I was safe in that sense. But I lived in California, and I also live here in Washington, and how that piece of caring for other people's children and giving them advice, disciplining them is, it's different. It's very different from the way that I was raised, and had to have learned different boundaries regarding that for other cultures that don't necessarily appreciate that. And that's been hard. I just want to enable that. I think that's been really hard as an auntie, because it came from a place of that's the way that I was raised.
That's true. That is very different. I was thinking about that because like when my grandmas came, like it was like whatever they said went, you know, like if they wanted to feed us a ton of candy, that's what went, you know? And so like I'm watching like my brother now like won't let us feed his baby any candy or sugar, and we're like, but why? Like it's fun. And my mom was like, okay, but you know, like I let my mom do whatever she wanted with you guys, and you turned out fine. So yeah, no, it's definitely interesting, like watching the changes and the shifts of being in America and what that does to our culture and what that does to our perspective of how to raise kids. And
that's what aunties do, right, Mia? Like they give you the candy in your pocket so you can eat it in your room behind your parents' back. Yeah. Oh, that's what happened. That also reminds me the piece, like the piece and the roles surrounding why our elders are so important to be a part of our children's lives. And I don't have any children of my own yet, but I have so many cousins and so much family and so many friends, and they bring their kikis over to my family house. And there's this thing that I realized, and it was something that I hold such deep gratitude for when it comes to grandparents, is that they hold this unconditional love for kids. Like unconditional, meaning they could do no wrong in grandparents' eyes. And at first I was like, that's not good. Like kids need to not have unconditional love. And I'm like, that's not right. But remembering the importance of how my grandmother, my grandparents, like they just loved me. And yes, I messed up, but they just did it. That was the parents' job. It's like, okay, they messed up. You got to discipline them now. And I'm remembering that because kids need that unconditional, like do no wrong love. And I appreciate seeing that now.
You're right. Yeah, kids, they need all kinds of support, right? And you know from your parents, you're like, oh man, I messed up. But from your aunties or your uncles, then, and you know, so as a mother, sometimes if I can't get through to my kids, I'll talk to their godmother, their ninang, and vice versa. We'll talk and we'll we'll talk to each other's children on our behalf, because sometimes the message sinks in. And then with your grandparents, it is that unconditional love, or that like comfort, you know, like I'm just gonna hang out with my Lola, my grandmother, for a while, kind of escape in that love before you go back and face the music. I think so. Leo's having a little bit of difficulty, but we did mention, we were talking to about how our culture, like Leo's back. Hey, Leo, I was just talking about how in a conversation the other day, you mentioned that like children nowadays, each generation is different, right? So you have to like kind of adapt the traditions. Yeah.
Right. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I'm in my car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, keep getting booted out. But no, yeah, I think as a father perspective, you know, you still want to keep the culture, you still want to keep the whole practice. You know, I was growing up to always go to church, so I would have to wake up every Sunday to go to church, and I still practice that with my kids, of course. But at the same time, as a father, as my dad in the poly community, you want to break those chains of avoiding. As a kid, when I went to my father, I couldn't talk to him because I was scared. You know, it was a fear of having that pride of a man as in the poly community, and yeah, we can practice all the culture stuff and keep that intact, but at the same time, as a father, we try to break that chain.
Oh, that was real. That was good.
That was good.
Dang it.
Put that thought on pause. Yeah.
Mom, you have something to say? I think.
You know, as a grandma, we see things differently. When I look at my kids, I think, okay, how do I treat them? Do I treat them the way I want to be treated, or do I treat them to be a better person than what I was? And yeah, I was a little more strict with my children, and I'm a lot better as a grandma. And I can tell you this, I think I would make a better mom now than I was then, because I can listen now. I can hear what they have to say, and I can talk to them so that they can hear what I have to say. And there is such a nice bond when you get to sit down and just relax and talk about their life, my life, and then share what we've done during the past week or the past month. And it's really nice to just be a grandma and not be judgmental, but there when they need you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. So how is it different? Because I know that a lot of your kids grew up in Hawaii. How is it different now with your grandkids here?
I had 3 kids in Hawaii. Then I had 3 kids here, and then I had 3 kids at home. And what's different about it, like when you grow up in Hawaii, whatever mom says or dad says, that's it. There's no ifs or buts about it. You had to do it, and if you didn't, you get whacked. And I learned here that you don't have to hit the kids, but you do have to talk to them. And my son, he opened my eyes. He said, you know, Mommy, if you just hit me, it would be over in less than 3 minutes. But if you talk to me, we're going to sit here for an hour and a half talking. And I looked at him and I said, you know, what would you rather have? And he said, I'd rather you hit me. And I looked at him and I said, wow, that would take me, you know, give me time for me. But I enjoyed being a mom. I enjoy it a lot more being a grandma. And now that I'm a great grandma, I haven't had that experience yet, but I just love sitting back and see what kind of people they are now and how they've held up to what they've been taught when they were young. So I look at all of you and I think, wow, your parents must be so proud of you.
Thanks, Mom, for saying that. There's a saying that I'm remembering. My grandma actually has this on a T-shirt, that if I felt this love with if I knew I was gonna feel this love with my grandkids, I would have had them first.
Yeah,
that
is so true.
And I'm actually just remembering something about our culture. I think it's cross-culturally, is that the way that we label our friends' parents or our aunties' parents is that we call everybody auntie and mom. Like, oh, when you came up, I was like, Mom's here.
Yeah.
That's a tradition that I want to carry. I definitely want to carry. And people don't appreciate that as much, and people don't understand the depth of connection when you are calling another person's mom or another person's dad. And I believe in our communities that's such a natural thing, and it really bonds us and is unique to our culture. And what you were sharing, Ma, about how the listening part and how the kids want the whack because it's shorter. It's quicker. Yeah. That's why we talk to you. That's why we sit. That's why we teach you lessons, because that part's important, and that's what's evolving. I feel in our communities as well, is that I was gonna say olelo because that means to speak in Hawaiian, to talk, and the importance of that, and the importance of hearing what our elders and our parents and our aunties and uncles have to say. Like, that piece is more valuable because of the time that it takes in order to teach. So when I hear that, Ma, when you said that, I was like, yep, I probably would have preferred a whack than an hour conversation because of the time.
You get the first hour, and then they come back for the next hour when they remember what they were mad about.
And also, when the talking happens when you have other families around, because I know you guys have experienced this. If you're at a party and you're getting disciplined, you're getting talked to, then your auntie comes. They give you the 2 cents of like how you would mess up and what their stuff is. Your cousin comes and gives them their 2 cents. So that talking part, yep, it's faster if you get whacked, but
but that talking part just hammers it in. I love how you brought up calling people auntie or uncle, or it's I like how it brings it back to connection and community, and then terms of respect, because in our cultures, it's so weird for me to hear people just hear the young folk just say someone's name, an elder's name,
like, oh,
yeah,
we do that here.
And then in the South, so we were a military family for a while, and in the South they kind of do something similar with saying ma'am and sir, which I really like. And I think when we were living down there, we practiced that too, is calling maybe more of the strangers like yes ma'am, yes sir. But it's really funny because my youngest is she was born in the military community where a lot of people just say first names, so we're like, when now that we live back home, she was like, are they really my aunt? She's very confused. She doesn't know who she's related to. But I'm like, yeah, just go with it. And we lived in Hawaii for a little bit too, so we're like, yeah, that's our Hanai family.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And what a gift too, when somebody else's child calls you auntie, or someone else's kid calls you mom. Like, I feel like there's such a gift. Like, there's that connection, but also the like, oh, there's no boundary. Yeah, I can feed you. I can share a song with you. I can take you out. Oh, that's my husband. He comes from Uncle Space. But but the gift part and how like I remember when I first met your children, Mary, and I'm like, oh, I'm Auntie Farrah. And I was like, oh wait, do we do that there? Do we do that here?
Mhm.
And yeah, they're like, yeah, Auntie. I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah, I have 3 daughters. So the oldest 2, they've grown up around that community, but the youngest one, she's learning. Yeah.
I love it. That was like, oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I noticed that I'm the youngest in the group here. So on behalf of like the younger generation, I completely agree with all of the traditions that you guys have said. I've experienced all of it. I wish I had a choice of whether to get a talk or a spanking, but I didn't, and that's just how it worked. But like calling everybody auntie and uncle is just like something I grew up with. And also too, I grew up military, so I wasn't really around my like my family that I'm related to. I'm Chamorro, so I come from the island of Guam, and every time I'm with my Chamorro family, um, we always did like a rosary, a novena, and that's just like something that was part of our culture. And so, yeah, it's crazy to see like other families and that I have not even met before. And then as soon as I know that they're tomorrow, it's like we're all like related and everything like that. But yeah, super fun. I love this conversation.
Yeah, so with these customs, and maybe we've all touched on this, but oh, you know what? The comments that are coming in are really awesome. Let's see if we can, let's see. Betty said, thanks to Jacob for speaking on behalf of the young ones. Auntie support is strong, and it is so precious. Yeah, that's all you get back. So why do you feel that continuing these traditions, these cultural traditions, are so important nowadays?
There's I feel like I can speak really deeply to that piece because there's layers of those cultures and the individuals in our families who are leaving us.
Yeah.
And I might get a little emotional, but there's a role that I feel like I hold now, where my grandmother's getting older, and just her voice and just her accent touches me in a place that I don't think that people can understand when you have a connection with a grandparent who speaks a different language and has a story of how their immigration story or their culture story. And that I worry that my nieces and nephews will not be able to experience the words that come from her and how it sounds, and something that I'm holding and capturing and why I'm doing it. Well, something I'm doing, I'll just share that, is I videotape and I capture my grandmother's stories, and I'm holding them now. I have them on a USB, and my hope is to share that with my nieces and nephews when it's time for them, when they get interested of who their grandmother was, because her words and our language are disappearing. Like, I don't know anybody else that speaks the Itnug language. I don't know anyone else that really has her accent or has a way of speaking that she does. And as an auntie, I feel that part is important for them to remember that story of where they came from, the land that they came from, the mermaids that she talks about, the monkeys that she had on her porch, and how those stories really bring that connection to family. And while there's rituals and traditions that she speaks about, the actual story allows them to be connected to a place That place really allows people to ground and be intuitive of who they are as people. And because I have many nieces, I believe that my role as an auntie is also to help to just hold that piece of where the strength of that woman, of who they are, is not just books that you read. Like, it was your grandmother was a strong person. I'm a strong, your mother was a strong person. And to have that remembrance.
That's beautiful.
So that's something that I'm holding and I'm doing actively, because I feel like when I was able to hear her words and when I need them, I have them. And I have them for my nieces and nephews when that time is, when they're interested in hearing those stories.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that really.
That's honestly an amazing idea.
Tugs at the heartstrings.
Phone disconnected.
Woo.
Oh, Leo's back! Yay!
Man.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. Sorry about that, you guys. I'm trying to drive to find good connection, and then found it. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, do you want to continue with what you were? It was getting really juicy, like.
Oh yeah, no. I was just saying, as a father, as a part of the poly community, I think it's good to keep in contact with your culture, as far as like going to church, dancing, keep that intact. But at the same time, I feel like we should also be breaking chains as well. I remember growing up, I couldn't come to my father like how I should, like talk to him about just normal things that that we should, as children, should go to a parent for. I didn't feel that from my father. I just felt a lot of pride, a lot of being a man of the house type thing. So that's what I grew up on, and I think portraying that to the kids now, the generation, I don't think it's gonna work that way. Just because of like social media and how the internet's just taking all over the world. But as a father, you just have to adjust on how to be there for them, especially in the poly community. I think we're always raised with structure, and we're always raised to respect our elders and respect everybody around us. But as parents and as individuals and as a mother, as a father, I think we should also be there for our kids mentally. I think that's something that as a man in a situation in a poly family, we should be more of a listener than more of a tell you what to do, go do that type thing. I think yeah. I think as a father, I'm learning that, and I'm learning what are the dislikes and likes for my kids, what's their trigger points, just stuff like that my dad wouldn't kind of communicate with me. So yeah, I mean, that's what I have to say as far as the father in the poly community.
Like bridging the two cultures, growing up here in the United States or in Western cultures, and bridging that with, I guess, our island communities. Yeah.
I'm remembering a conversation that the PI Health Board had with a Tlingit elder who, oh gosh, this was back like in 2016, and it was addressing the pieces surrounding like forgiveness for family and forgiveness for parents, and acknowledging a separation between generations, and how the way that our parents had to parent and the way that our grandparents had to parent were actively a part of the situation of the times, and how the times are different from when my mom and dad had to parent and how my grandparents had to parent, and how that story is not often acknowledged or talked about, and that it causes a rift between generations of my mom did this and she had to do it like that, and how that causes some hurt. I feel like there's some hurt that it causes sometimes, of not understanding why things were done a certain way. And I'm remembering stories of, I'm remembering what had come up for me in my heart was, whoa, they had to do that for protection and for survival, being in a new country, being in a new land, being in a new culture. And there was a real big sense of forgiveness in that sense of like, oh, I understand now. I understand why grandma did that. I understand why dad and mom did it that way. And there was this beautiful sense of connection when I was able to rectify that within myself. And I'm hearing what you said, Leo, right? Like we have to bridge the two. And our children may not be ready to hear this is why it was done this way. But to have also that conversation of 20 years ago is different from now. And we couldn't do things. We couldn't do things then, but we can do them now. And the time that it takes to like remember that or even acknowledge that it was done that way because of that in order to protect our children is even, it's something that's even happening now. You know, like I'm just acknowledging from it helped me to remember that conversation, Leo, of how yes, we have to bridge the two. And there's also that linkage of we want to be connected, but there's separation because of lack of understanding of why things were done that way.
True.
And yeah, Betty in the comments says protection and survival. For achieving what was said, we had to do, no questions asked, because it was easier and less difficult to fight with the people who owned our lands or fed us. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And because of their struggle, we're able to live in a space where we can now have these conversations and bridge these gaps and be maybe more responsive than reactive, right? So I like how, adapting. I think that was LJ in the background.
Oh,
It's gotten so big.
So fast. So, Auntie, I'm curious, what's your favorite part of being a grandma now?
My grandkids are fun. I actually have fun with them. We talk, we sing, they ask how I feel about things, and I actually can just talk to them without being the mean one. You know what I mean? When you're a parent, you have to lay down the law. You have to do this, they have to do that. But with me and my grandkids, we can actually talk. And then they can tell me anything, anything without me being judgmental on what their decisions are. And I can say what I believe about their situations and one of the things that they need to change in order to become a better person. And a lot of times they don't appreciate that, but that's okay. I'm there for them. And if the truth hurts, I still love them. I mean, being a grandma, when I listen to all of you and you guys saying how much you want your kids to learn about your grandma, write the stories down. Leave it for them to read and appreciate those things. Sometimes they hate when you talk about it all the time. But when you write it down and then when they're ready, they can read it. And I have written down my stories for my kids. And the first thing I did was I wrote about them being born and why they were why their names were chosen, so that they understand where they came from, who I am, who their father is, where we came from, how we were raised, and why their name was so special. And I think, now that you're all young, take time. Take time to get to know your kids. I know it's hard because you guys got to work, you got to bring things home, but take time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day. Just take that time. You'll never regret it. I promise you, you won't regret it.
Aww. That's so sweet. Man. I kind of wish I was raised with my grandparents more, but they lived far away. Were any of you raised like with grandparents around? And what was that like?
For the early part of my life here, my mom's mother, my nana, was around, and I hung out with her a lot because I was kind of an only. I have stepsisters, but they were only with us for like 2 weekends out of the month. So my nana was kind of someone I hung out with. So we'd watch like Jeopardy, and I'd watch Dynasty or Dallas with her, all her stories on the TV. It was nice, yeah. She told me some of her stories growing up in the Philippines during the war and the Japanese invasion. So I'm able to carry that knowledge and talk to my cousins about it because they didn't have those opportunities. So it was nice. And yeah, and there's nothing like having your grandparents cooking. It's like the best.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Get to know your parents. You gotta give them a chance and get to know them. I know sometimes you get really don't want to say anything to them because they get mad at something or they get, you gotta take the time to know your parents. And then when you know your parents, then you'll know your grandparents. But you gotta take that time to know them because they're not gonna be around very long. And then you'll have your own children, and then you're not with them anymore. So get to know them while you're with them. And then, I don't know. To me, I think that's more important that you get to know your parents before you know your grandparents. You'll understand a little more about them. Don't let that time pass by. I mean, you would like that to happen with your kids, for your kids to get to know you, before you're gone or they leave to go to college and then they start their life. Take time to know your kids. Take time to know your parents. I mean, I lost my grandson and I got to know him, which was really good, but he didn't get to know his parents. And I feel really sad about that. So to you young people, get to know your parents, then work on your grandparents because you'll learn a lot more about your grandparents through your parents.
That's true. That's wisdom.
Rachel Lynn asks, what's your advice for talking with elders who are always silent?
My husband is silent. I have no what do you call that, advice on how to talk to them. They're silent. I can't even talk to my husband because he's so silent. So I'm sorry, I can't even give you an advice on that. Maybe write a letter.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ma.
Catch them when they're going to sleep. I mean, then they'll be too tired to yell at you. So that would be the best time to get to know them.
I definitely have family members, and my husband's also he's a man of few words as well. When they say something, they say a lot. When you meet people who just talk and then they're not really saying much, the individuals who don't speak as much, I realize I hold gratitude that when they do speak, they say a lot. My dad too, he's a man of few words. When he says something, it's either a joke or it's really impactful. And the getting to know part is of meeting him where he's at. I feel like when they're doing things that they enjoy, My dad enjoys golfing. I don't, so that's not a spot that we could share. But a place that we shared was we enjoyed the water. We like he was a surfer boy back in Hawaii, a little Filipino guy with likes to surf, and I obtained that love for the ocean through him, and we enjoyed paddleboarding together, and it was a space where we got to know each other on a really sweet level, and it opened the doors of him also sharing music. Like we enjoy music, we share music together. He also enjoys gardening now, and that was another space that we were able to share. And it was basically doing the things that he enjoyed and finding and it just sparked conversation. Um, the hard part, I also believe, is when you have family members who don't speak the same language. I think that's also another soft, tender spot that our communities experience, and that's hard too. That's hard to navigate. But yeah, that's my advice: is do the things that they're doing. Catch them when they're doing something that they like, and just kind of like join in, even though they might not want you to, and you might mess up. And I think it's really the conversations just kind of like organically start sometimes.
I would agree, meeting them where they're at. My daughter's grandfather, paternal grandfather, is a man of few words too, but I found that he's funny. He likes jokes. So when they do something to make him laugh, or if they say a joke, humor just opens up a lot of doors and conversation.
Yeah. Jacob, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so for me, I'm probably the closest grandkid to my grandpa, and kind of like the way I got close to him was to ask him to teach me more of our language. Unfortunately, like my generation doesn't really know a lot of Chamorro, and we don't. It's just like an old language, and we didn't really grow up with it. So when I'm always with my grandpa, I always ask him, Tata, please teach me like how to say this or how to say this. And it's fun because it's such an old language that like some of the translations don't really work out. And he's like, oh, I don't know how to say that. And he says, oh, just say it in English when you say that. And so that's kind of like one of the things that gets me closer to my elders, is just like asking them to pass down those words and like that part of our culture, which I think is like super important. Which is kind of also too why I want to eventually pass down all those like customs and traditions, because unfortunately I can't pass down all of the language. So yeah.
So your mom and dad doesn't speak Chamorro?
My mom and dad understand, and so like when I'm very close to my grandfather, I understand just as much as them. But yeah, there's not a lot of elders that speak anymore, so there's not a lot of kids my age that actually speak. And also too, I'm here in college, so I don't really hear it a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Mary? Did Mary freeze? Oh, we lost her. Oh no. Well, I know it's getting close to the hour, and so I was wondering if you guys had any final thoughts you wanted to share just about your experience with your family that you wanted to share with everybody and what that's meant to you.
Mary had kind of prompted me from this yesterday, and I wanted to make sure that I brought it up because it's definitely been a positive thing that has happened when being an auntie and helping other families to raise their children. Is this component surrounding water and earth. And my auntie used to always say this, like, if you're angry, you mad, go to the ocean. And it makes so much sense. Like, oh, okay, go to the ocean. And then when I started doing that with my nieces and nephews, and just like even sitting on the water or taking them on my paddleboard or just taking them to the beach, there's a way that the ocean teaches kids, the way that is this unspoken thing that they learn on their own. And that's a tradition and something that is not really like talked, or like you don't talk about it, you don't do it. It's just kind of this organic thing that I feel like island people just do. They go to the ocean or they go to the mountains, and there's a teaching in that. There's medicine there. And I wanted to close with that, like to remember those parts of our culture that deal with the ocean and the mountains, and how that really allows for another lesson for our Kiki.
That is very fair. We're such water people. I was like, no wonder we all live on coasts now. Auntie, did you have any final thought? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jacob.
Sorry, before Auntie goes, I just wanted to announce that. So I have a cultural club, which is like a Marianas Islands club here at Seattle U, and this year I was the director for an annual show that we have that kind of highlights Chamorro dance, language, legends, food, and so we actually are recording a show and we're live streaming it on YouTube this Sunday at 6 o'clock. And I'll ask we can add the we can put the link on the Facebook so that everybody can watch. But I hope you guys can join, and that's the last thing I have for you guys.
That was the best plug ever. Yes, let's share it. Oh my gosh, if you're free on Sunday.
It's Sunday at 6 o'clock?
Yes, Auntie. Yes, Auntie.
Okay. Yeah, I do want to say something.
Yeah.
If you have children, love them no matter what. No matter what happens, just love them. Even though they make you mad, just love them. Be there when they need you. Be there to have a shoulder to cry on. And I'm looking forward to your cultural night. I think that would be so fun to learn about Chamorro people, and see if your culture is the same as ours. That would be so cool. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. It was very enjoyable to hear what you have to say. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think we all learned so much from you too, and from everybody on here. This has been really great.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's making me miss being with family. And like during COVID, it's been a little different. So yeah. Oh man, gonna have to make a trip around everywhere. Be like, hey guys, I'm back. Are you vaccinated? Let's hang out. Oh, but thank you so much for joining, and happy API Heritage Month. I know we're nearing the end, but this is a great celebration of our culture and what it all means to us to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But thank you so much for joining, everybody.
Bye. It was nice meeting all of you.